Start, and if you have any questions, please use the questions of the chat and send it to me, and at the end of the session we can actually look at answering many of them. Thank you once again. So let me start with this transformation journey in terms of the webinar. We have a couple of points today to focus on. In the previous presentation on the business strategy and a cutting paradigm, business and its strategy and a cutting edge paradigm, we had tried to understand and overview some of the business, the imperatives that the business needs, and how does the technology fit into it. We also, using the scissor, we were able to look at some of the major impact factors of IT on the business. So that it becomes more profitable and competitive in the market, considering the various areas that technology can help, where the business focuses and how the management focuses. So just to bring together, maybe a couple of you wouldn't have been in the presentation earlier. These presentations are available on the website for you to revisit. I will send out the links at the end of this webinar. So just to revisit, if you think of a scissor and then you think of the customer as one of the levers and product as one of the other lever, the idea is to ensure that the customer map to product. And so in the position of the scissor being open, you have some governance and process gaps. You also have a high supply and demand mismatch. The two levers being the supply chain and the economic market demand driving the lever through the fulcrum effectively to bring the customer to map to the product. So the improvement is essential in terms of business process effectiveness interest, as corporate governance effectiveness through the other side of the fulcrum that you can see here. So that the technology helps in focusing the process excellence with value-based delivery. And on the other side of it, by doing business modeling, process modeling, domain modeling, one will be able to better represent business in the technology support or enabling the business through technology or even sustaining some of the profitability using technology. So the idea is basically to cut the governance and process gap as to reduce the supply and demand mismatch by bringing the financial supply chain or the material supply chain closer to the economic and market demands, so effectively mapping the customer to the product. So that was the paradigm that we spoke of, and we also spoke in terms of this fulcrum, which is the enterprise architecture and strategy focus in an organization. So that whole stress or the continuum of the lever processes are enabled through the enterprise architecture governance as well as design in continuing. So it is a continuously working process. If there are changes to the products or changes to the customer segments, you need to revisit how your financial or material supply chain meets your economic demand. So you may have to leverage on the scissor model to ensure that there is profitability and effective reduction of the gap and the SAD mismatch. Having said that, I think we also summarized in the part 1 that we must have an approach and methodology for business strategy modeling. And this will actually bring value through strategic planning. So the second point was that what I spoke about, the supply and demand alignment and improved project utilization and meeting the agile customer experience, we must involve ourselves into qualitative domain modeling. Only then we will be able to achieve the best of the needs that a technology can provide to the business. And last but not the least is in terms of technology strategy meeting that of the business is not only to enable the consumer meet the product, but also ensure that the governance and process model, that is the gap, is reduced considerably. And for that, we need logical process modeling. So we have strategic planning, we have domain modeling and process modeling, which will enable effective architecture definitions and continuing through the design. I also spoke in the previous part about the 5 pillars of ISA, they being the business technology strategy, the IT environment, the design, the quality, and not the least is the human dynamics. So the 5 pillars of ISA will actually make sure that enterprise architecture model will meet the value benefits for the business. The last bullet that we discussed was in terms of operational strategy for ensuring a support and to sustain and effectively succeed in whatever we do as technology enablement for business enterprises. And to that, we may adopt certain enterprise architecture frameworks, best practices, a combination of some of the factors which will help us support, sustain and succeed. And here the ICE is in integrated collaborative environment, and that is basically the human dynamics which we will discuss more in depth today in our part 2. I hope I could bring all of you back into what we discussed in the previous webinar on the business and its strategy represented through the cutting edge paradigm. So let's move forward in terms of what we have in the overall agenda. Though we discussed the first part, today we are discussing integrating business and technology strategies, and in further we will be looking at how to do architecting and how do you actually transform, what is it, or what does it mean for business, what does it mean for technology. That will be a part 3. The part 4 of it is more in terms of the architecting a transformation with the enterprise architecture, the architecting solutions, and then going for a program called business transformation is 2 cups of tea. You can architect solutions, you can plan for certain transformation. However, if you are going for multiple programs to transform a business, you must have transition architectures, you must have fallback strategies. How do you exactly support them? So while the first 2 webinars, including today's, will be in a theme to sustain your business, how to ensure it sustains, the second and the third and the fourth will be more in terms of supporting such a transformation happening. And the last one will be evaluating the value measurements that this enterprise architecture brings in to the business. And that's a theme to succeed. So there's three parts to the overall agenda. Today we are going to discuss only part 2, which is a part of the theme to sustain, integrating business and technology strategies. So in this particular webinar, we will focus on 2 of the pillars of ISA. One is that of the BTS, the business technology strategies, and the second is definitely and most definitely the human dynamics involved in a collaborative environment. It does touch base upon IT environment to a extent, because we are actually executing the same in such an environment. So we have 3 pillars considered already. So let's go forward in looking at what will be the benefits through this particular webinar. The key benefits and strategic value of architecture to the business is very important for us, and we need to understand that. And what we do is we try to understand what best practices we can bring in, how agile IT can be to meet this moving strategy of the business. So we must understand a little bit more on this. What is the strategic values? What is this agile IT? How do you actually bring forth some of the best practices? The second point is every architect has their own personal viewpoints, a point of view in accepting business and IT teams together to handle a challenge, or do silo amount of works, then synergize together for an enterprise view, and all exist under an integrated collaborative environment. So if you look at Project Office, which is the PMO which is running multiple IT projects, and then you have a business strategy group sitting somewhere else, and then you also have a CTO's office defining some technologies to be adopted for specific needs of the organization. How do they all come together? They have to come together through an integrated collaborative environment. It can't be a simple project hierarchy where there's a program manager, you have quality specialists and programmers. you must have business representation, you must have strategy presenters available. So most of things matter, in terms of, are you able to see my screen? Just a moment. Okay, yeah. So if you are looking at today's webinar, it will give you some perceptions, some methodologies, some procedures where you can adopt and learn from the available best practices in ISA, as well as adopting to multiple frameworks like Open Group or any other, to bring this value to integrate the business and technology strategies. Now we have been talking business and technology, but I don't think we have seen so far what are those different pillars or elements which are most essential for the strategic purpose. So if you look at your balanced scorecard in an organization and you estimate and evaluate the position of the four named entities, say for example, IT strategy as an independent entity, IT architecture is an independent entity. Of course, they are interdependent. We also know that business strategy and business architecture have to be dependent. But how are on the lateral scale? That is, how do you drive IT strategy based on a business strategy or vice versa? And how do you derive IT architecture out of business architecture? These are some of the things which are in different quadrants enable a successful alignment of business and IT. So there are multiple perspectives to this. It can be business strategy as a driver, which is the first box, driving, in terms of the IT strategy and ultimately leading you to establish an IT architecture with different software, products, hardware, infrastructure running that. That's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, sorry. The other one is IT transformation itself. It is driven out of the CIO and CTO. The business doesn't really bother about it. What really they matter is in terms of meeting their values. So obviously, a business architecture is derived out of the existing strategy, and IT architecture is mapped with that of the business architecture. You may ask me, well, in the last strategy execution, IT strategy directly led you into IT architecture. Doesn't it also go through business architecture? The focus is less in terms of IT strategy referring a business architecture. You refer IT strategy to the business requirements through business strategy, align them to the particular strategy. Say for example, CRM, customer focus, know your customer. And that's your strategy. By knowing my customer, I'll be able to devise my products and sell it to them. If you look at that strategy, the IT will be aligned directly into providing such structured alignment to enable a success in business strategy. So you can directly negotiate and come into a design of an IT architecture. Whereas in terms of IT transformation, you are looking at existing business scenario. You are not having any changes in the business strategy. And already you have a business architecture, a data model or a business model, a process which is available, which you will align with your existing multiple applications which are there with you in IT. IT portfolio. So the IT environment will go through a random change to align with business requirement, business processes, and you would have seen also in some of our your projects that there will be business process realignment, re-engineering happening. All this will be as a part of IT transformation, 1, 3, 4. Now the second part is there are situations where IT strategy is an enabler. This will be mostly driven out of the CTO or CIO programs, whereas the IT architecture will actually map with the business strategy and get you a defined IT strategy to be adopted. And then you go around in circle to improve your IT architecture back again. So that is checking your competitive potential. You have existing portfolio of applications. You cross-check and cross-validate with your business strategy. You align your IT strategy to it and then redefine your IT architecture. And this, basically the business is least interested because you're going to get the same thing, but maybe the cost and the performance angles will improve. But this is IT strategy as an enabler. But in certain verticals like media, high tech, The business gets more competitive if you have this IT strategy as enabler, because you'll be using, say for example, in insurance industry. Now the agents, if they carry iPad, they will be effectively be able to feed the data, do most of the transactions in front of the customer away from their offices. Now that is actually a technology enabler. So you map your business strategy to meet the customer, change your IT strategy to adopt into buy your own device, let your agents go, create applications which can be applets on your iPad and run your IT architecture and benefits. So that's a competitive potential. The last one is on the service levels. You are revalidating your cost, your performance with reference to what you are actually giving back to the business. So it's more of service level. It is more of sustain and support. It's not a new one. So basically the business architecture will be taken as a reference. You will reference an IT architecture to it, revalidate it, and look at an IT strategy which might be, you might be moving to cloud. You may adopt big data. You may go in for a service-oriented architecture. So these are the offshoots of certain service level IT strategy as an enabler. So I hope you got the multiple ways of aligning perspectives of business and IT alignment. Now each of them requires different role play of the management team. Who drives them? Who will be actually running the show? How do we validate them? And they're all important, in terms of defining your IT strategy and managing them. So I hope you understood these four very important boxes of strategy and how the architectures map and how you align it. But this is a little bit elaborate picture from that context. So if you look at the enterprise-wide focus versus that of the project focus, the enterprise architects are there in both areas. In project focus, they will be more in terms of governing, ensuring solutions map whatever conceived. Excuse me. And in the enterprise-wide focus, they have very big presence in bringing together business strategy, IT strategy, coming out with a transition plan, making sure that the IT investment and performance management are met, then derive a project portfolio management, execute them and govern them through business operating environment and IT infrastructure. So while in the top you have forces on the enterprise like market opportunity, customer needs, internal competitiveness, competencies and technology, the enterprise architecture is a city plan based on that. So if you really look at the cutting edge paradigm that I spoke of, we spoke about the supply and demand, the customer meeting the product, how the internal focus will be there on how to improve technology. So that's all on the forces on the enterprise, which you saw in the lever of the scissors. So the observation is, in terms of IT investment management, performance management, the absence of IT architecture practices and strategic integration is a concern. Today we do not have much focus in terms of how does that be brought under architecting and design. It so happens that we have multiple systems and projects going on. You do it in silos, in performance management, in silo, IT investment management, ROIs and TCOs, but it doesn't really map with what your business strategies or your IT strategy for your value benefits. That is what enterprise architecture tries to bring together. Enterprise architecture tries to bring together, in terms of a complete city plan, a business architecture and the IT architecture defined through applications, data, integration, technology, some of these aspects that you know very much, aligned to IT strategy, aligned to business strategy, and as well as being able to communicate these effectively for a transition plan and to a project plan for operating environment. Similarly, the business architecture helps in deriving processes, re-engineering them, creating information sets, identifying people and skills, looking at geography-wide specifics. So they are all in the business architecture representing a particular business model and a business strategy. So the domain modeling and the process modeling comes overlapped in terms of business architecture and IT architecture, especially in terms of a doer and a taker. The business architecture defines your domain and process model, whereas the IT architecture implements the same through applications, data integration and technology. While doing so, if you have existing concerns, you will be able to look at a transition plan just similar to that of maybe in overseas environments. You have specifically a new highway coming up or a flyover. Before you build that, you make certain roads feasible for transit. And once the completion of the flyover, this transit will be removed. So this is an approach which has been a part of the EA framework, which is very little taken care of in individual projects. We just take it in silos. A supply chain management project or a CRM project or a core banking project or a billing management project. We do not know the repercussions of each one are while transiting from the present IT environment to the next. How does it affect business? We only realize it once there is an effect. Then we take a reactive action as to control it. With EA, the context of EA in an enterprise, you will be able to take stock of each one of them before you start. That is a part of the plan so as to design and deliver. So that's in a view. If you look at this particular slide, it gives you a complete perception in terms of how the business strategy and processes map with that of your application portfolio and a technology strategy. Now that is business and technology integration which we are looking at. How to achieve it was the last couple of slides that we discussed in terms of looking at various angles, various processes, various strategic impacts that are essential, the details of which are there in capability model or identifying strategic imperatives, identifying IT capabilities that are essential, then looking at IT capabilities derived into business requirements, and once the business requirements are in position, one will be able to go into the specifics of solution architecture and implement using technology. So that's how the business and technology. We do have both the sides of the story in every organization today, without which no company can work. But what we are talking is in terms of meeting the KPI and metrics, bringing value of IT to business, one must integrate your perception as to understand what is business, what is its needs, how are the values delivered, and align your applications and technology, align your strategy to perform those things towards the business needs. That is where EA strives to. That's the integration model. So I spoke a little bit on the business model side of it. What does it really mean? A business model, if you look at it, when a couple of you would have thought about starting your own ventures, or you would have heard of others talk about ventures. Say, for example, Tata's recently started to move back into the aerospace and air travel, wherein the strategy was actually to really go on for the lower cost model, go with AirAsia, and for the niche segment, go with Singapore Airlines. Now, that's a strategy. So once you have a strategy, then based on the business strategy, they will do a model in terms of specifics of the business. How do you actually do a design of some, where are the benefits coming? What is very important revenue bearing functions there? How do we meet the partners? How do we identify the partners? What will be marketing? What will be the product? What will be the value of the product? How will the capital be built? So these are some of the things which are there very much in a business model. Now if you go further, you have a strategy to meet that particular business model. You have to have a strategy, without which we cannot do everyday trial and error process. So the organization actually identifies the purpose, actions, what kind of decisions are needed, what kind of performance you need for the business enterprise to meet your goals. So in that, you will also define with what alignment you need to do and what will be environment to succeed. So that's a strategy. Strategy is to meet the purpose. with certain actions, decisions and a specific level of performance with an alignment to the organizational needs and its environment and achieve the goals. And that's a strategic definition. So obviously to manage it, you need to continuously reassess and regularly look at whether it is meeting the need or not. And onto that you need to take external assessments, how your competitors are, and then reset your goals, strategize again. So it is managing the strategy, and that is how you meet your social, financial or political demands and be able to be more profitable. So how much ever the strategy is defined as, one should be able to identify such strategies which are manageable, which can be reassessed regularly, consistently, it proves its worth, and that's identifying a strategy in the business terminologies. Now, further to it, you must do a modeling to define what this business strategy at the lower rungs of the organization look like. How do you execute them? Managing is one thing, executing them is one thing, sustaining is something. In a collaborative environment where you not only rely on IT but also on different other technologies. Say for example, if you look at manufacturing industry, there are a lot of technology focused components. There are some things which are very important in terms of modernization of their equipments besides information technology in computers. Now as we talk in the last few years or even a decade, more focus has come into IT environment, having computers to help in execution of business. But that has thoroughly undermined the necessity for technology improvements in a business, and how does IT support it? So IT being supporting or enabling doesn't stop improvements in business strategy, aligning it with core technologies in the industries. Maybe it's textile, maybe avionics. So there are technologies other than IT. So I can call it as environment IT inclusive. So whenever you are buying or purchasing equipment for your manufacturing, you will always look at its value. Why not look at IT that way? So far we haven't succeeded in measurement of value, buying a computer, sizing your network, your bandwidth requirement, the capability of the software, a billing cycle. All this actually give in terms of business a value similar to buying a scissor or a machine for your enterprise. So that is how you will sustain and support and succeed. And that's what is needed in the integrated collaborative environment. So summing it up, at this point of time, if you are looking at architecting a landscape, integrating a business and technology strategy, there are three most important things. One is you need to actually look at sustaining an integrated collaborative environment in which human dynamics are predominant, IT environment as a pillar is predominant, collaborate business and technology is important. Of course, in qualitative measures, how good your design and quality is also there, but in key to sustain, in ICE, we look at a watermark in the global framework, without which you cannot just exist. A watermark is most important, the project, the people, the products, the promises, the processes, and they all collaborate with either a business model or mitigating an issue, migrating from one environment to the other, managing strategies or managing applications, and also monitoring them. Now, with the P and M's come actually an environment of integrating them, have new information sets, evolves infrastructure to support them, new innovations to bring value to the business, intelligence to be able to identify who are the best customers, which is the best product to sell, and all the interdependencies. So the PMI model is what the integrated collaborative environment is all about. So you must be able to understand at least 70 to 80% of these PMs and the I's when you go and do a solution architecture or a technology architecture or even go higher with in terms of enterprise alignment. The second part is you need to support teams. They are the landmarks in the global framework. Okay, they are the touch points. Like you have a business entity, you have CTO, a technology entity, the environment in which you're working. It might be a bank. It might be more in terms of a manufacturing setup with workshops and product component realigning factories. So you have environments, you have business people, you have technologists sitting there. These are all the touch points that the architect will have to feel. And while delivering this support, you may have to overlap multiple enterprise architecture frameworks, different standards, various methodologies and practices to actually bring value to that particular organization. You cannot say today I have worked in X organization, I know this framework, standard and methodology will give the value. When you go to the other environment, different business, different technologies, you will have to mix and map various available frameworks, standards, methodologies to achieve the value. So that is key to support. The last one is actually means of life. Once the water and the land mass is considered, then the means of life, the oxygen, is the strategic value. Without the strategic value, all your projects, all your models, all your integration information, everything is nothing, is not useful. It must form a means of life which will give strategic value. So this is in all initiatives, in changes, be it business or technologies, it is to be considered, a strategic value. Profitability in business is the most important thing, because I hear most of the IT organizations or IT project owners or program owners come back and say, we don't have budget for it. They talk it in such a sense that the business is not able to understand what they are doing. Definitely so. Because what they have proposed is of no value to business. That's why they have not budgeted it. If you have strategic alignment, understanding business, then you will get strategic value, obviously you will get your budget. That means you are not architected well. So an enterprise architect or a solution architect sitting in an IT group and saying, oh, forget it, man, I didn't get a budget for this, means that he has failed. He or she has failed in convincing how much value it has brought to the organization or is going to bring value to that organization. That is where architects have to be highly knowledgeable in terms of bringing sustained support and succeed. The watermarks on the land mass along with a means of life. Without a means of life, having water and land mass is actually a stupidity, because it can really give meaningful value. It is that we have not designed or architected things better. So going further, let's go a little bit further into what is this ICE, Integrated Collaborative Environment, all about. A little more details in terms of what its components. We talked about business model, we spoke about strategy. So the next couple of minutes we will spend in terms of identifying and elaborating on that. Now most of you in the past seminar understood that there are 5 pillars of ISA, out of which we spoke about IT environment, we spoke about the design, maybe the quality and the processes, then we also understood the business technology strategy. But this particular slide speaks about promises that people, project and products provide. They're all interlaced, and that's more on how human dynamics perform, how do you control them, how does the human skills are empowered, how do they really understand the organization, their performance benefits, and they all fit into this landscape. So the human dynamics part of it is very important in terms of how you manage the environment. Now there is performance valuations. There is also, in terms of monitoring one's productivity. You will also say that 9 to 5 all of you should sit together and work. But does it all mean productivity? Does it all mean that we are successfully integrating, interfacing with each other and working? Listening to the team leads, who in turn listen to the program managers, who consult certain technologies and business leads, come back to you and say what needs to be done, and you just plainly do that. Now if that is the case, then you don't need really human dynamics, because it's a hierarchy business, hierarchy oriented organization. But at the end of the story, at the end of creating a product or a project completion, and you look at sitting and really testing how effective it is, you find a lot of gaps. It's as per design. Then you say, as an IT team, oh my God, the business changed its functional requirements. They have moved on. And we have done what we thought was given at the end of the last year. Now, where was the gap? The gap was your environment not talking to the business environment. Obviously, strategies are missing there. You are focusing on it, and lower-end programmers and designers were never exposed to the kind of agility that the business is in. And suddenly the organization feels the whole project team is useless. They stop the budget, they kick out the IT team. That's what happened in many projects. According to Gartner estimates, 66% of the projects in the last 3 years have failed miserably. They have not provided value to the business. Why? Is it because the programmers and designers work badly? Definitely not. They would have done the best Java code, they would have put on the best mission, architected a very good high-ending hardware network, but it has no meaning to the business because it's not actually hitting the nail on their strategy and model. So this is basically bringing in, again, all the 5 pillars together, but the interface to them is not just about reading a document, or it is about understanding the business. It is about interaction between the people who are in different role play, who have different service level agreements with each other. So this integrated environment will fail if there is no human dynamics appropriately learned by the group who are working within the project. So alignment is very important. Now, next to that is basically you're looking at the models that come out of it. How do you actually mitigate an issue, migrate from one environment to the other, manage and monitor. What do we feel actually as a best practice is what is listed here. There must be a foundation for all the model, mitigate, migrate, M's. They must be coming out of business and IT mapping, either in terms of business architecture to IT architecture or at the level of strategy itself. The third level is actually you are looking at business functions. Functions may be at certain user interfaces, functional aspects, and they have to be mapped with that of what you are providing as an end product to the community. Either way, at all the 3 levels, the M's must have a mapping. And every project, when we speak about P's, each one of them have their own model, mitigate, migrate, manage. So you will have a project which will have a specific model, mitigation model, a migration model, how you manage it, how do you monitor it. Similar to that, you have, if you look at products, you buy like SAP, or Oracle products, they will have their own, and even the business products, for example, they will have different models in the business alignment. For example, selling a particular automotive. So obviously each of them will provide unique M's. The piece will provide unique M's, and each of the M's together is actually owned and sponsored by business. And that is where we will find business budgeting, business prioritization, how the projects need to be prioritized. That understanding you get from the 3rd bullet. Now the caution point for architects is always the 4th bullet. When I spoke about the 4 quadrants, which was the business strategy, IT strategy, business architecture and IT architecture, we had this IT strategy sponsored projects, right? One which originates from IT architecture, try to map it with that of the business strategy, revert back, change your IT strategy and redefine IT architecture. Unless a value is specifically mentioned, this is IT sponsored venture. Say for example, just because Microsoft, HP, all the big organizations have moved to cloud. Cloud has a certain benefit. Now, you want to move to the cloud, your business logic or your applications or your data, it has a repercussion in terms of how business is going to get executed. Now, if IT sponsored venture is moving on to a cloud, will reduce, let us say, cost, improve the performance, and doesn't have a mapping with that of the business landscape. it will never get funded. So you need to be convincing. You should put forth the values first to the business organization which takes the benefit out of it before you do it, and show the value at the end of the. So till then, business is least concerned. They want continuity of business. So that's the level at which they talk at the strategy level, CTO level, CIO level. And then last but not the least is in terms of transformations. You will have to relate the model and the information as well as model and the piece of it. Say for example, a specific product, a business product will have a specific model or a managed portfolio. Now the information that comes out of it, the need for integration there will have two-way relationship. That's where the transformations happen, because you are moving from one environment to the other. So define the environment to the best fit the transformation landscape will make you successful. So you should be conscious of definitely the ICE, which is this slide which talks of, and you need to be highly innovative. But in many organizations, it is not just about innovation, it is about being successfully being able to implement it. There might be 101 thoughts, concepts, strategies which has not been proven, and you do a research. You invest in research and you get 3 out of it. Out of the 3, one of them might be a very successful venture, but it's not proven. So you take time in terms of small proof of concepts, you look at business benefits, showing to the business group so that you can improve in bringing about a transformation with more effective, intelligent and innovative approach, and you look at the multiple processes interacting together through your new logic. And that's where your core architecting IT design comes forth. However, if you look at enterprise architecture, solution architecture and technology architecture, the width of the applicability and interdependencies are much higher at enterprise level compared to the solutioning and of technology. So obviously, a person who is at the technology architecture level or solution architecture level may not be knowing fully the repercussion of going ahead with a particular design of a CRM application. How does it affect actually in supply chain, the product portfolio movements needed for the customer? You would have changed aggressively the customer designs, but it doesn't really map with that of the product portfolio managed. Now that is where the enterprise architects fit in. They would have looked at interdependencies, the intelligence that has to flow within which what reuses can be done, what kind of integration is required between the two, what will be the pitfalls, how do you do the transition. That comes under enterprise architecture across the width of the organization, where the solutioning will focus on different domain areas and technologies look at the enterprise width of reusability of certain technology approaches. There might be niche needs for a specific technology here and there, but overall, you need to bring in a business centricity to the environment by thinking about the width of the portfolio with specific experts, SMEs or solution architects giving a very value-based solution. I hope you understood this particular thing. It's very important, the P, M and the I's. We can have more detailed discussions in terms of bringing the business centricity to the environment, perspectives of different architectures, specific business models, how do you map the business model to operating model in the next couple of slides. But without this 3 P, M and I slides, you will ask me, why are you talking all this to architects? Do you think I need to do modeling? Do you think I should go to that extent? It depends upon the role and the responsibility, the tier at which you are working. But the width of your width of awareness is a must. You must be aware that the interdependencies are there. It is a collaborative environment. The methodologies that we adopt is different across different portfolios. And that will bring a business centricity. Let us go a little bit deeper into in terms of a business model. I think we do have another 10-15 minutes to go by. So let me go a little faster on this, because I think most of you would have seen a similar canvas. In terms of you have partners, you have activities, your cost for the product, then you give an offer to the. This is very much analogy to the scissors that I spoke of. This is the product side, and this is basically the customer side. There might be channels linked with both levels. You might have partners helping your products coming in supply chain. And on the other side of it, you might have client relationships, you have distribution channels bringing client segments. So obviously, you have a business model wherein the best of the offers come in and map with that of the client requirements. That's the business model. So who maps with what is all indicative here. Whereas, let's say for example, a specific partner network can independently offer to specific client relationships. It can be viewed that way. So if you can actually draft this flow and canvas as needed for your particular business and define who is your partner, what are your key resources, what will be your cost center, how will you map it, that whether you invest initially and then once the revenue flows come in, you improve your cost structure to enable competitiveness. So those are all depicted in a business model canvas. This is how it looks like. I'm just depicting that so that you can associate what I talk with what is needed eventually. So if you look at the business model, it says what business I want to do. If you're looking at operating model, it says, boss, how you do it. So obviously, how you do it is more tougher. You can define business model with the knowledge of the business centricity. The guys need not be having any technology focus. They may not be even knowing existence of many technical components available. But an operating model really looks at how to bring that architecture together. You define processes, you put decisions, you structure the hierarchy, you qualitatively measure the performance, and you ensure that the whole stuff is down. So there are different models for each of the process, decision, structure, performance, and governance. And each of the business model will have an operating model. Each business model type will have a different operating model. So if a company has got, let us say, 4 business models, one is to actually sell small and medium customer, small and medium industries. The other one is look at big spectrum. Now both the business models will have a corresponding operating model. For example, if you look at the mergers and acquisitions today which is happening world over, that's the problem we have. You go into a merger and acquisition, both the organizations would have been doing the same business, but their focus would have been totally different with reference to their product and their customer segment. And both of them will have the same kind of billing system, a financial application, or a customer relationship management application. Many of the software packages, they may have, each of them have different. One has SAP, the other has Oracle. So when a merger and acquisition happens, one looks at overall business model, looks at operating model and defines what is essential, retain, manage, re-engineer. So you need to have a business model focus in terms of arriving at what is best value for the company. So that's how we define if you look at the bottom hand structure, it gives you a little in terms of suppliers and suppliers and customers mapping. How does it integrate? How do we have a hierarchy? These are the things that comes for in structure modeling or in terms of decisioning. Who takes the decision? Hierarchies. What are the processes going from suppliers to the customer? So these are all defined through this operating model. So a little bit more elaboration on the same thing. We spoke about business processes in our scissors paradigm, which is very important in terms of bringing business process effectiveness. That's all in the process model. Then a decision model describes relationship between the processes, where and how you make decisions which are very critical to the company. And how does it actually role play? What will be the KPIs? Okay. And then the structure model, which is the roles of the units. It may have, say for example, one of the IT companies that I work with was fully focused on vertical, that is industry segment. There was another company for which I worked, it was more focused on geography. In a geography, irrespective of the vertical, for a specific different technology, they have their group. Whereas in the first company, across globe, whatever you do in that particular industry segment is controlled by one person. Now, these are different structure models, and a performance model can vary as well in terms of measuring each of its performance. The kind of measurements that you put in geographies are different. The kind of measurements that you put for product selling is different. So one should be aware of business to actually create an operating model and then ensure that everything is down. So that's how the business model becomes an operating model. In all this, the classifications are based on how you actually integrate, what are the standards required, how diverse one can go. Say for example, there is a business strategy that once I kick off with this particular business, I will give affiliates to run or different vendors to operate independently. I diversify my products, okay? Or I just look at replicating the same thing geography-wide. So there might be different kinds of business strategies and modeling. So you should be very clear as to how to bring standardization and integrate some of the value benefits there. So again, we are talking about the PM and the ICE. There are maturity stages here because not all organizations are very high mature in terms of operation models. Some of them are, so there will be business silos, there will be head of business not mapping with that of another business area. There might be dynamic venturing going on between partners. There might be dynamic venturing going on between customer segments. So one should be very clear about how you can classify those in the operating model. What we are suggesting in all this is you must have two focus, at least two of them. One is achieve value chain through domain mapping. That is very important. It will be a functional structured enterprise management system approach. The other one is adopt an end-to-end event logic, that is a process dependency. So for that process, you must go end-to-end, look at how integration happens at the operational level and derive benefits out of it. Now it's almost like a cross. The domain goes down, the process across. The process is across and the process may go across multiple domains. That's what I'm trying to communicate here. So unless you have these two major approach change in your work, architecting, design, communicating, in understanding business, one will not be able to achieve this collaborative environment. We started saying at the end of the part one that we must have domain modeling, we must have logical process modeling as a takeaway in terms of technology mapping with that of business. And now we are suggesting that at the operational model level itself, we should define these two very clearly. I think there's an audio connection that has been lost. So let me go to the next slide. Can any one of you indicate whether you are able to hear me? Are you able to hear me? Okay, I think we got back the recording. I'm sorry for that. I think there was an internet issue here. So going further in terms of the value chains that we spoke of, The core business value chain is more in terms of what we spoke of, the P and M and the I's, the projects, the processes, the various information sets, so on and so forth. The one which brings in value here is the management business value chain, which looks at strategy, risk and business development, business modeling, inputs to business modeling and management control and such. And from the bottom we have the support of the business value chain, which is more in finance, HR, all the supportive logistics. IT happens to be in the core business value chain as well as that of the support business value chain. That is a thing that you need to, in fact in many other presentations I have actually requested attendees, where does IT fall in this? Does it fall in the core business value chain or is it in the support business value chain? The answer is, it is in both. It depends upon how much IT is enabling and how much it is in supportive mode. Whereas, if you look at the other technological components like a machine, it all falls under core business value chain. IT does go into support business value chains as well. Excuse me. So, if you look at the value chain supports, you must integrate the three layers. Though of course the core business value chain goes on in iterative mode, and that is the core actions which actually bring together value to the management and the business. So I'm trying to sum it up at this point of time. The business drivers, what we are asked about, the business strategy, the business modeling, what business kind drivers, they're used to actually prioritize the business areas, and we analyze that in enterprise planning groups, either in enterprise architecture or in our offices or in customer focus groups, program management offices, but they all go around looking at value that can be derived once you understand the business area, business drivers and the prioritization of the business area. So that brings in business centricity. So one of the other definitions for that of the business transformation is about making fundamental changes in how business is conducted. So I have seen situations wherein supply chain have failed and they wanted a global alignment in the supply chain in a major automotive. In other cases, I have seen a geography-wide expansion of banking businesses that actually triggered off with a lot of transformation initiatives. I've seen in terms of new companies coming up in telecom and high tech who needed change to meet and be competitive, to stay alive in a particular geography. So business transformation is all about impact from external changes, how your organization's products or services change, how do you compete in the market. So again, we come back into the scissors where we check in terms of how does the product meet the customer and how effectively you are reducing the supply and demand gap. That is actually an answer to what will be the business transformation objectives. And overall, it should improve your customer satisfaction, obviously, because your profitability will get improved. And you have to cut certain costs so that you can be more profitable with the same approach, maybe. But that is very siloed outlook. If you are looking at product positioning, mapping that of customers, ensuring that you are in the competition is a business transformation. Business transformation is not about cutting costs. No. You have to improve. You may meet a couple of these bold words, but not all if you are just looking at cut costs. So that's a caution point. So with that, I come to the conclusion of this second presentation. If you have any questions, you can shoot at the questions or chat, or you can also, I will give you another 2-3 minutes time. You can send me in a chat or a questions. I will be able to answer them. Otherwise, you can definitely be able to send across your questions through the emails, please do send it to b.jade@jdruids.com. b.jade, unfortunately I'm not able to chat. Hold on. Yeah.